Hey guys, Youngblood with you for a first look at the 85X, now available in 2.6. And what we're going to do in this video is actually take a quick walk around the hangar, kind of showcase the ship just a little bit, and then get it into flight and give you some first impressions on how it actually handles. So the 85X is a really sleek looking ship, and when you just look at the design, you can tell that there's not much of a cross section, really any direction that you look at it except for top or bottom. Now, when we look at it from the side, you kind of get a false sense here because you've actually got the wheels, and obviously when you're in flight, ideally you're going to tuck your landing gear away, and that shouldn't end up being a problem. So if you follow the bottom line of the hull, it's got really this kind of swept back look to it that looks really aggressive, it looks very sleek, and it gives you a pretty small cross section to actually hit from the side. Now from the front, you're going to notice how slim this ship actually is. I mean, it's like a flying wafer in a way. So even from the front, there's not much to hit. Now, this is a snub-nosed craft. It's more of a support craft. It's more of, it kind of falls into the racing category too, with it being an origin ship and just some of the comments made from the developers. So this slim profile, I think, is something that actually works well as a racer because, you know, if you're out in the asteroid fields and you're flying around, being able to zoom through those without having to worry about your ship hitting unnecessary things, that's a benefit. If you're talking about flying around like old Vanderval, being able to fly between the buildings without actually clipping things is going to be helpful. Now, it is interesting to note, and you'll see this once we actually get into the cockpit, there isn't a whole lot of, I guess, cockpit bubble there. Your character actually sits pretty low inside of it, which means that as far as visibility is concerned, and again, you'll see this when we actually take it out flying, it's an interesting visibility type of ship. Now, as far as the weapons are concerned, you've got a couple weapons on it, which snub-nose is pretty common, and size 1 on snub-nose is common as well. What's a little bit less common is that you've got 4 of them, and it actually comes stock with longswords, which is a pretty decent ballistics weapon. Now, I did initially have some concerns, specifically in regards to the belly-mounted weapons, because if you look at it from the side, you can see it looks like you're going to be almost scraping the underside of your ship, meaning that you might have interesting issues with trying to hit targets that are out in front of you. Again, when we actually get into flight, we'll talk about that just a little bit because it didn't end up being as much of an issue as I expected it to be. Now, outside of it, you've got some of the maneuvering thrusters that are in place. You've got the retro thrusters right here that you can see in action. In the back of the ship, you've also got the primary engines along with the oh-so-important spoiler up top. So that's just kind of the look of it. Let's go ahead and jump in the cockpit. Where we have the stairs that slide out. It's a sharp-looking animation. The sounds on this ship are really well done. Inside, you've kind of got racing-type seats. Now, this is one thing that's a little bit interesting because it does differ depending on which side you're in, and it appears you can really sit in either side. On this side, you've got the traditional flight yoke, and you've got a pretty good heads-up display with your ship status indicator, and then this is going to be kind of your universal, MFD there, where you're going to be able to actually change this. So it typically is going to show your guns. You could probably change this over to targets or power systems management, those types of things. And then you also get the information right in front of you. Now, this little rectangular, or I guess hexagon in front of you is where you actually get your bubble radar, and again, you'll see that when we're in flight. But as far as the just kind of details inside the ship, you can see that you've got some wood grain in here like you'd expect from Origin. You've got the white and black theme with the carbon fiber also in place. So we're going to go ahead and jump out, run over to the other side, because unlike a lot of snub noses, this is a 2-person craft, which is a nice perk, because if you're running around and doing some errands, having somebody else that can come along with you, or maybe using this as like a shuttle or a taxi type of ship, is something that provides a certain level of utility. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out over here, once we get in, is you're going to notice that on the right-hand side, you've actually got a stick, and on the left-hand side, you've got a throttle, which pops up out of the center console. So it is a little bit strange. You know, one side you've got the traditional flight yoke. Over here, you've actually got the joystick and throttle. So it's a little bit different there, but I don't think it necessarily really matters at the end of the day, considering your passenger's probably going to only be taking the taking the steering wheel when things are going really wrong. So there you have it. That's kind of the interior of this ship. So let's go ahead and get it up in flight, and we'll talk through some of the details on how it actually handles. So in flight, the 85X is a pretty interesting ship. It's got great visibility out of the cockpit from the horizon and up. And the left side visibility in the cockpit isn't all that terrible. But the dash and the low-lying seats mean that the visibility down and to the right are both going to be blocked a little bit. Now, the user interface on the HUD is small, but it is clear, so you're probably able to clearly identify targets when in combat. The bubble acts as you would expect it to, and it's easy to pick out, threats and friendlies. Now, the speed on the ship isn't all that fast, which I found to be a little surprising, with topping out SCM speed around 155 and a max afterburn speed at 560. Now, again, the flight model changes mean that 155 is much faster than it was in the past, but for a borderline racing capable ship, it did feel a little bit sluggish as far as the speed. The agility, on the other hand, is an interesting one because I feel the ship is very controllable, and it does what you want it to do. However, it's not a breakdancer either. I think you get the benefit of predictability more so without the max skill that's kind of associated with something that moves on a dime like the M50. The weaponry of 4 longswords is more than adequate on a ship of this size that falls into the snub category, and provides some surprising firepower on a ship of this size, and it proves to be a hard target to hit with it being small and fairly nimble. Now, my concerns about the undermounted weapons that I mentioned before didn't end up being problematic because they do have a big enough firing arc, and the convergence with the wing-mounted weapons is fine. Now, I haven't personally tested this ship in racing, but frankly, I'm not much of a racer anyway, so my feedback in regards to that arena would probably be pretty limited. Overall, I'm a fan of the ship. I think it's decent in combat. It has a nice luxury feel to it, and I could easily see myself using this as an in-system kind of a shuttle to just go about running some errands, because it's got the really nice perk of having a quantum drive in it, which is something that really sets it apart from the other snub-nosed ships that are in the game today, meaning that you can actually get some usability with this in the universe today, as opposed to being stuck around Port Alizar with something like the Merlin. It's a fun ship, it looks really sharp, and it has quite a bit more utility than some of the other snub noses, so I'm pretty impressed with it thus far. So that's going to be it for this 85X overview. If you have questions about the ship, let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for a lot more content coming soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.